That's it.
There it is.
Live from Vanguard's mirror voting policy, right from the policy itself.
I don't want to be live from that.
Their hall of mirror voting policy horrors. It's a Business Pants Friday show here at November 22nd Studios featuring AnalystHole Matt Moscardi. Whoa, we got Matt. Matt, I gotta say, Matt, you have a lot of fans. I noticed that you have a lot of fans. People. Sometimes they thank you for your incredible contributions. So I'm going to announce to anyone listening, we have Matt today. We have Matt Moscardi right here.
Yeah. So thanks for booking me. It took a couple months to figure out when I could fit it in my schedule. Also, I do want to thank the fans who come up to me in the street.
Yeah.
And ask me what I think of a particular director at a really esoteric, mid-cap company.
Yeah, good for them.
I really appreciate it.
On today's weekly wrap-up, DEI and meritocracy shark jumping. No more Jaguars for blue-collar America.
Ooh.
A-Holey, or is it A-Holey investors? That's a written joke.
That's really who wrote.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Who do we have to fire about that joke, really?
And will the real Elon Shady please stand up? That's our show today. Our show today is being sponsored by freeflowanalytics.com, the only platform measuring board power, connections, and performance for free. Yeah, it does more than that, though.
For free.
Yeah.
Free.
It does more than that. It does measure those things, but also it's just a handy place to, if you just want to know who's on the Rio Tinto board for some reason, their ages and gender, all that stuff. It's just the simple stuff you could go.
Who isn't thinking about that, really?
Well, yeah.
Everywhere I go, everyone's like, "Who's on the Rio Tinto board?"
Well, when you see headlines like this from the Wall Street Journal, Rio Tinto says sexual harassment, racism still happening at their minor. While things are improving, resistance is evident and might be contributing to a rise in harmful behaviors in some areas. Maybe you should want to know who's on the board. I don't know if that article
I do think if you put up like the photo arrays you show people who, to identify a criminal, like you go to the police department, someone mugs you and they give you a photo array, like pick out the person that you recognize. If you showed a photo array of every single board on like the boxes at Target, right? Like so Procter & Gamble products.
That's my dream.
Photo array.
You're referring to my literal dream. Yes.
I know. Well, I thought of it as like a nutrition label, but the photo array, actually, you would look at that and be like, would I buy from these people? do they look like people I could trust to buy something from? And the answer is probably no most of the time.
They talk a lot about like DEI running amok, right? So this is which has fueled this sort of young white male resistance to DEI. But listen to this. This is from the Wall Street Journal about Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto is finding it difficult to stamp out sexual harassment, racism, and bullying as it faces resistance and backlash from some workers and efforts to overhaul the culture. Right? Is that the first? This is the first story we've seen where this is now trickling down to the workers at the company, but they're like, no, we're not, we're not changing.
We're good with
That's
this.
Woke. Yeah, we're good with this.
Like, we don't have any DEI training, so I'm good with
Usually
this.
it's just spineless, overpaid board members who get rid of the DEO policies, but this is workers themselves being like, nah, we're not interested.
Those same spineless, overpaid directors, the overpaid part is very relevant. They get paid the same amount on an hourly basis
they
as
don't
the
do a lot of
CEO
work.
makes.
Yeah, they don't do a lot.
And they go through 12 meetings a year, right? Like, so what are we talking about?
And according to our data, a lot of them have very little influence.
Come on.
Yeah. All right, come on. We're way off here. Let's get to the show.
I like being way off. I like this. All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
Story of the week. Unfortunately, I have 5. I'm gonna go quickly on the first one. I'm gonna go quickly on the first one because no one wants to spend time on this. The Department of Justice says Google must sell Chrome to crack open its search monopoly.
Wow.
All right, let's go. Let's move on. That's old school business news. We're new school business news. We don't dwell in that like old fussy stuff. Okay, we're moving on.
Who would they sell it to?
Us.
Ooh.
Okay, I want to start with this one. This is relevant for Americans only who celebrate Thanksgiving. The headline is, especially for those of us in the Northeast, because this directly affected me for several weeks. Stop and Shop cybersecurity issue empties shelves before Thanksgiving.
I know, because I shop at Stop and Shop.
Well, I do too. So my version of Stop and Shop up here is Hannaford. It's the same company. But the app has been down for so long that I just stopped going. Also, one of the times I went to the store, there was big signs on all the doors saying cash only because our card readers are down because of this issue. So I just stopped going basically because you know what? Who the hell carries cash, especially enough cash to buy groceries? That's a lot of cash. So yeah, go ahead.
Can we say, though, Stop and Shop, Hannaford's, these companies, the companies that supply us our food in parts of the United States, owned by a Dutch company called
Dutch? Belgian? Belgian. Yeah.
Belgian. A-Hole Del Hayes.
A-Hole. Did you say A-Hole?
A-Hold.
Okay.
Or a hold. I don't
Sure.
know. I'm going to go with A-Hole, though. This is not a U.S. company doing that. That we're being cyber attacked, and we can't even. Like, it's not even in our jurisdiction. This is not good. I want my turkey, and I want it now.
And here's the context of another reason why I picked this story. Not only the context of Thanksgiving, but listen to these two other headlines that we have tagged just this week in our news story database. I don't even know what it's called. We should name it. We should trademark it and sell it. But Trump's new administration, this is a headline, Trump's new administration should not tolerate the level of cyber attacks coming from Russia and China, Microsoft president says. And this other headline, the AI effect, Amazon, the company Amazon, sees nearly 1 billion cyber threats a day because of AI. 1 billion. And again, and just to wrap it up here, the reason why I chose the story is that one of the things I've been shouting about for years in the context of analyzing the boards of directors of these companies is knowing who's there, knowing who has what skills, knowing who's appropriate to be there. Do you want 5 people from Dartmouth, or maybe do you want 4 people from Dartmouth and 1 person who has expertise in cybersecurity, right?
Oh, can we actually say maybe anything? Cybersecurity in a thing, or like
sure.
Expertise
but
in a thing.
But I'm just trying to paint a picture here, Matt, of why the board matters.
I know.
I know it's an outlandish thought.
With nuance.
I know that the idea is to have you're surrounded by your friends who help the CEO just like
that is true.
Rubber stamp everything. But the board actually could and should be a useful entity.
We talked in pre-production about Rand Paul, senator in the United States, who wants to get rid of the Cybersecurity and Intelligence Committee.
I don't understand
that the
that
Senate has and wants to shut down like funding for it.
I don't understand
the whole thing. And he said in a great quote, which I closed because I didn't think we'd cover it, but like he said it in his great quote, "We survived 248 years without it. So we'll be fine." That was his thinking on why we should get rid of it.
Is that real? Does he really think that?
That's a real thing that he said about cybersecurity.
Well, to be fair,
no irony.
Yeah, to be fair, Matt, I do have the data here. In 1842, Amazon.com saw only 0 cyber threats a day.
So he's correct.
So he's right. He's right.
It wasn't a big problem.
Yeah. I love Amazon.com in 1842 was so much simpler because there's really just like, there was like 5 items for sale. A mule, maybe some hay.
What?
Right? Maybe like what else was like a steel iron that you could hit to put on your horse's hoof.
How does one hack
a horseshoe?
That? Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, let's move on. That's just all right.
I do want to say last thing on that story.
Yeah.
That I do want to say that there are 67 U.S. companies where in our database, computers and electronics, there are 0 directors where that is.
Oh, look at you. You have the data. You have the data.
67 out of about 500 large cap companies in the U.S., which means about 12 to 13% of large cap companies don't have a single person on the board with computers or electronics as a base knowledge. Those are across every industry, including like food, Thank you, Stop
crazy.
and Shop.
Yeah.
Like gas utilities, healthcare. How about this? Biotechnology, biotech industry. There are
Crazy.
there are companies without a single computer person on the board.
Moving on to the third headline of the week, and we can go quickly on this too because I think you're covering this. So I'll just read the headline: News Corp shareholders reject activist bid to end dual class share structure. You have more on this later, so if you want to cover that later,
we can skip it. I don't want to talk about it. Anyway. I don't even want to talk about my own thing.
Fourth story of the week. I will say this though. I will add this about News Corp shareholders is that actually a lot of shareholders voted to pass this. 35% of shareholders. And if you subtract the shares held by Rupert Murdoch, that means that 64% of non-Rupert Murdoch people want this.
I did that math. I'm upset with the
let's
other
move on.
side of the yeah.
Oh, let's move on. The fourth one, I'm calling this one "Has Meritocracy Jumped the Shark?"
This is mine last week. You're just copying me from last week.
Oh, okay. Well, this is what we do here. This is the headline, which is just mind-boggling. And we're talking about Linda McMahon. She's the president-elect Donald Trump's pick for education secretary. But here's the headline. This is from USA Today. Trump's education secretary nominee once said she had an education degree, but she doesn't. So,
Wait.
I mean, yeah.
There's no but in the headline. I like that it just says.
Yeah, this is true. There's
she doesn't.
Yeah, she
Like,
doesn't. Yeah.
that's it.
A little bit of background so you can understand why I picked this, why it's relevant to us. First of all, this woman was the CEO of a publicly traded company.
That's correct.
But it was WWE, a
That
company
counts.
but a company that has just been a dual class company that has been riddled with sexual harassment, sexual assault, just all kinds of horrible. In fact, she's currently being sued. Why is she being sued?
Apparently, she aided and abetted. She ignored the fact that an employee of WWE was sexually harassing
children,
underage boys.
Yeah. So
children.
here's the headline from the New York Times: Trump's education secretary pick named in sexual abuse lawsuit, alleging that she knowingly enabled the sexual exploitation of children at the company where she was CEO. The other reasons why I picked her is because Matt announced in our last show that we're very busy scraping board members from all kinds of entities in the United States and beyond.
Yeah, everywhere.
But one of those things I think that you're scraping from are places like universities. Linda McMahon sat in the board of trustees at Sacred Heart University for 13 years. So this is one thing that hopefully will be included in our future iterations of our database. And also, Matt, she also co-founded, we often talk about these conservative research groups that have silly names like Liberty Eagle or whatever. She co-founded one called America First Policy Institute. And the only reason why I point this out, because we love to go right to the leadership teams to see who these people really are. And this one, again, of course, 15 people, all white people. So this is well, I'm just saying. So this is why I picked this story. This is why I picked her, because former CEO, board member at a non-for-profit, blah, blah, blah.
I got a weird question about this one, though. It's a little tinfoily, so stay with me.
Yeah.
Is this the greatest government glass cliff ever, right?
Well, okay, so you're so it's like you become the CEO of Walgreens and your first task is to destroy Walgreens. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so the Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Musk and Ramaswamy, they announced their initial list of things that they wanted to cut, and on it is the Department of Education. So you're putting her as the head of the Department of Education
with a big hammer,
waiting for them to fire the entire Department of Education, right?
Yeah.
So is it the perfect glass cliff? She's basically given a job that there's no potential for success, and it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. Do they pay her something? Is there some advantage? It is a cabinet pick, which means I believe, as a government employee, she has to divest from any conflict of interest that she may have, like stock holdings that she may have, or there's like requirements. So maybe she gets some like tax-free money for selling her, some stock or a house somewhere or whatever she's got to do.
Let me up the ante on your tinfoil hat wearing. What if this is just another clever way of proving that DEI has run amok because they've hired a woman who and she has no experience. She's clearly not qualified to be to run the Department of Education, right?
So
they're right.
Tweets?
They're right about DEI, right?
The door plug popped off of a Boeing plane, and Musk was all over Twitter saying DEI.
So this is very clever. This is very clever of them.
This is just a troll. That's that is
because she's clearly taking the position of a man who would be more qualified in a meritocracy, right? But anyway,
obviously, right?
Yeah, you see the point here of why I'm saying meritocracy jumped the shark because this is what they shouted about. Even the Vivek Ramaswamy who was on our show, this was his big thing, meritocracy.
Meritocracy,
and this is what, and he has no sk set which would to cut government funding, and she has no skill set to run the Department of Education. By the way, Matt, to end this talking about Trump's potential new programs and cabinet picks, they added Marjorie Taylor Greene to work with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on that project to cut government. I'm just saying they added another qualified genius. So I don't want this to be
another DEI pick.
Pure politics. So let's end on this. My fifth story of the week that I had to fit in. I don't usually add a fifth. I just love this one so much. This is from the Washington Post. I was not going to include this because I didn't think it was something that we would cover because I wouldn't think it was at a company that we would cover. The headline is, it's called Work Advice. I'm uncomfortable with our CEO invoking Jesus in meetings. Ooh, right? And I thought, well, this is probably a small company in Worcester. It's like like 10 employees. You know what I mean? Like this is not a big deal. But then I looked at the article. She says that the reader says I'm a mid-level executive for a publicly traded company. So this is a company in our database. So I just thought it was funny that she's talking about how the CEO of this company starts every day by invoking a Christian prayer, and I just thought
are you?
Oh, I like this one. I like this one.
Are you pointing this out because of the deep hypocrisy that companies aren't allowed to talk about DEI?
Absolutely not.
But they can be devout Christians.
No,
they're allowed to.
There's no political messaging here. I pointed this out because I am hoping that this is a future data point in our database where we can add how many CEOs invoke Jesus Christ's name in morning prayers. Right? I want to know that. That's all I want to know.
We want every data point.
Yeah, I want everything. All
right. So my options here are.
Sorry for so many options.
Google selling Chrome, Stop and Shop really killing me with cybersecurity, News Corp rejecting activist bid to end dual class shares, Meritocracy jumped the shark, and CEO invokes Jesus.
Publicly traded CEO.
Publicly traded CEO. That as a new data point. That's really what you're saying is the story of the week. Having that as a new data point. Look, Meritocracy we talked about last week. It is very clearly a troll. It is. I think we're past it now. Aren't we done talking? Notice how I'm not hearing much about the meritocracy right now. I hear a lot about wokeness. And
We've stopped talking about
whatever.
It. Yeah.
But they've stopped talking about it because it is so painfully obvious that every one of the cabinet picks, everyone doing everything in the incoming administration has absolutely no expertise in that thing. We hate experts. We don't listen to our doctors. We don't trust them. We don't listen to news anymore. We don't trust that. We don't. You could have spent 50 years doing a thing, and we'd think you were probably lying about having done that thing at this point. So,
but let's be a little bit more accurate. It's a bit more than a troll. It's a sinister, racist, sexist troll, right? It's not just your average troll.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Let's qualify the troll. Yeah. No, it's a sexist, racist troll.
But I think as story of the week goes, it's hard to really pick anyone other than the education secretary.
Interesting.
I
didn't think you'd go that way.
Do we really think that News Corp shareholders were going to end dual class? Did we?
Well,
are we really shocked?
News Corp shareholders did essentially, just except for Rupert Murdoch.
But do we think that a Belgian owned U.S. grocery store is going to care about Thanksgiving, cybersecurity issues?
To me, if I had a vote in this, that actually would have been my story of the week. Only because I kind of do worry about a future where this gets kind of out of control, and we're not in publicly traded companies, to your point, are not fortifying themselves against this. And even Rand Paul, as you just pointed out, is trying to deregulate in this area. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of, you're not going to see the Business Roundtable show up and fight that. Or maybe you will. I don't know. Maybe they will.
How dare you say that? I do actually think the data behind the Stop and Shop one is really important. Knowing the knowledge of the people on the board and what they're actually
it's important for us to sell us
is I don't know why people aren't curious about it. Why people don't want, why we don't get a call every 40 seconds asking us, is this board even competent or qualified to, handle these issues? So I agree with that.
Well, that would be aggressive. That would be aggressive towards the directors to have a point of view. But I really think
that this ongoing meritocracy troll is let's move on. Is it. All right, let's go on to good list. Oh, I don't have a good list.
Well, you kind of do. We both agreed at the beginning of the show in pre-production.
Yeah, that's why you stole my good list. I said it was going to be good list, and
you take it.
All right. So when I saw this, I thought it was fabulous.
I don't even know how to talk about this. Speaking of stupid trolls.
So the headline is Jaguar dubbed Bud Light 2.0 after releasing modernist rebranding ad with androgynous models, no cars. Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a anti-woke backlash against Jaguar, the car company, because they put out this ad in which, I don't know, a dozen people wearing very bright
models, essentially. They look like they're off of a runway, like a modern, like Paris fashion show.
They're supposed to be androgynous. They're not.
But fashion's been doing this for 30 or 40 years. They've been doing this.
It's not supposed to be gay or straight.
It's not a new thing, though. It's like Star Trek or something.
A lot of it says stuff like, no more rules, and there is, like it's supposed to be that. But there's no car in the commercial. It just says Jaguar, and it's got like the new writing. Like it's supposed to be the beginning of a rebranding. The anti-woke just went bananas,
right? Because the anti-woke, which is represented mostly by MAGA blue collar types in the Midwestern states, are big Jaguar buyers. That's why they went crazy.
That's correct.
Because that's the first thing that made me chuckle. Is like Bud Light 2.0. Like, wait, what? Like, who's buying Jaguars? Like, who do they think this ad is targeted to? You think you're going to see that at the halftime of the Chiefs Bills game? You think you're going to see a lot of Jaguar ads? I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about.
Everybody's tailgating in their Jaguars before going into the Cleveland Browns game last night.
I don't know what we're complaining about here. That's the first thing that made me chuckle.
But it was contrasted against this quote unquote pro-family ad by Volvo.
Yes.
In which like this heterosexual white couple who's young, he's putting together some furniture or something, and she comes in and she's pregnant, and then they have a baby.
IKEA, must be beautiful. IKEA furniture.
It's like a 3-minute advertisement. It's like a really long advertisement about raising a family and Volvo and whatever. The thing that struck us both that made this good list is all of the anti-woke outrage for the most part. I mean, you have Target a little bit. You have, it all is non-U.S. companies. This particular outrage, Bud Light 2.0, Bud Light owned by a European a Dutch company, right?
No?
Yeah, Anheuser-Busch. They are Dutch, right? Or no, maybe they're Belgian too. I can't remember.
We get those people mixed up, don't we?
A European company, Anheuser-Busch, owns Bud Light. They're the first backlash. Now, this backlash is Jaguar, owned by Tata Motors, which is an Indian-based company.
Yes, absolutely.
And Americans are contrasting it for the family-friendly ad put out by Volvo, owned by a Chinese company.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that most Americans don't realize, that they haven't caught up to. This is a whole separate issue, but this also made me giggle. Volvo is, yes, in fact, owned by a Chinese entity. And in fact, if you go to our data right there, it's controlled by I believe they're brothers, the Lee brothers, who control over 70% of influence.
79% of the influence.
Here's why it made me laugh, because there was another headline just today. Texas governor orders state agencies to sell China assets.
Oh, finally. Finally. Including
so this
their
is
Volvos.
So this is the backdrop to this. And the other thing that made me giggle, too, is that they're saying that the pro-family Volvo ad was released to like counteract the Jaguar ad. But in fact, the Jaguar ad just came out, and the pro-family Volvo ad's been out since like September or so.
Yeah, it's
been
out for like a couple months. Yeah. The whole thing is, I mean, it fully jumped the shark. Like, now we're just wandering around looking for things to be really upset about because someone might be gay in the ad. It isn't even, the Jaguar ad wasn't even, like, it was androgynous. It was non-genderized on purpose.
Yeah, but it looks like
meant to just be
it looks like
colors.
It looked like a science fiction movie straight out of a Paris runway model. Like, none of it was real. It was just like pretty colors and silliness.
Like a friend of mine sent an SNL skit that it looked exactly like that. There's no car in the ad. It's like, that's what it's supposed to be.
Here's the other part that I pointed out about this is that, so they're dubbing it Bud Light 2.0, which suggests a massive boycott against Jaguar, right? That the backdrop of the Bud Light reference here is there was a significant boycott against the company.
Yeah, there's a boycott. Yeah.
So here's couple other ads that made me chuckle in relation to that ad. Jaguar rebrand sparks confusion, angers anti-woke critics, including Elon Musk. Okay.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And this other ad, Texas AG opens investigation into advertising group that Elon Musk sued for boycotting his own company. So you see how this works? Like, you can boycott in certain directions, but not other directions.
The gays, but you better not boycott my platform.
Notice how Texas is involved with both of these. Texas is angry at people who boycott X, and they're angry at China.
Anyway, this was up for a good list because
this just blows our mind because it's just so silly.
It's comedy. It's like, come on, we have like 3 non-US companies involved in the biggest anti-woke backlashes. Like, what is this?
Oh, it's exhausting. All right, mine's a little bit more simpler. My goodliest of the week. This headline: Blue Sky CEO Jay Graber says that her ex-rival is billionaire proof. This is a new term. I love this new term, billionaire proof.
Billionaire proof.
The reason why it's billionaire proof is that Blue Sky is open source. So if someone were to take over Blue Sky, all of the users can take all of their data, all of their posts, everything they own, and just leave. They're not going to be held capped. Right? So I just love this new term. I love the term billionaire proof. By billionaire proof, we've been saying this for a while in different ways, like dismantling dual class shares, right? That's a way of billionaire proofing your company, right? I just like this term, billionaire proof. I like that.
Investors should like the idea too. You should like the idea that your investment is billionaire proof, as in some billionaire cannot tank your investment because they feel like it, right? Like, because
or has complete control over without any counterbalance, without any oversight. I don't care if the oversight is other billionaires, but as long as they have oversight in some ways, right? Like, it's not just Mark Zuckerberg like fiddling around and making every decision.
Yeah, that's correct.
Let's move on.
I'm still going with anti-woke.
That's the winner of the week.
That's the winner of the week. All right, let's move on to A-Holiest. I've got 3.
Go ahead. These are A-Holiest.
A-Holiest. Okay. The good news is I wrote down a lot. They're not that new or interesting in some ways. First of all, News Corp investor.
Way to sell it.
36% of non-Murdoch investors wanted to stick with dual class structure.
That's a lot.
You pointed out that 64% voted for recapitalizing the company, getting rid of dual class. It's 4 was recapitalization. So
if you do the math, if you eliminate Rupert's shares, 64%
against was keeping Rupert's shares. 4 was getting rid of them because it was the shareholder proposal was written such that we are proposing recapitalizing as a single class. Okay, so if you voted for that, it meant that you wanted no more Rupert shares. You wanted everyone's got the same class of shares. 36% wanted wanted to stick with the dual class structure. They wanted to keep Rupert shares. That was the non-Rupert vote, right? Like, so when you take Rupert's votes out, you've got 64% who said, oh, let's recapitalize, and 36% said, let's not.
And my assumption is that a big chunk of that is a couple of institutional investors.
So the top two investors that aren't Murdoch's, Independent Franchise Partners and SOF Limited, which was founded by a Murdoch friend, actually, the head of the Motion Picture Association based in the UK. They voted, you can assume they voted with the Murdochs, and they own 17%.
That's nearly half of that figure, yeah.
Nearly half of that. It left basically another, they owned 18% or 19%. 17% of non-Murdoch investors that weren't those two institutions still wanted dual class shares. Who are you?
Well, this is
how is it not 99.99? We can get a director vote, and you cover this all the time. A director vote that is 99.9% for, as in 99.9% of the shares will agree that this director should go in. Somehow 17% of investors think they should have less rights than some other investors. I don't understand why this is not. Who are you?
Matt,
you should have to give up your shares.
I have
Just
a thought.
Give them to somebody else.
Maybe this is part of Vanguard's new, and I'm not making this up. Maybe this is part of Vanguard's new mirror voting policy, which votes an investor's proportionate shares in approximately the same proportions as the votes cast by other shareholders. Maybe it's just people who didn't want to pay attention and just let Vanguard choose.
I mean, do they make a qualification in that policy that when it's a dual class company, the other shareholders, one guy, like, or is it the minority shareholders, the ones that own like common stock, like everybody else?
Then maybe it was the Vanguard policy called company board aligned policy.
There we go, company board, because there were two board members who own some B class shares that are not Murdoch's. They own about like 4,000 shares together. I also want to know who the mysterious 11,643 votes that abstained.
Well, I haven't thought about this. I haven't thought about this. You didn't watch the show Succession, right? Which is based on the Murdoch family empire.
I watched the first 4 episodes.
Well, there's a character named Cousin Greg who doesn't really know which side to go. He doesn't know whose ass to kiss. Does he kiss the kid's ass? Or does he kiss the Rupert Murdoch's ass? So he kind of just stays in the middle, Cousin Greg, and he probably abstained. That's my guess.
So then I went through and I was like, look, if you are in that like 83% of the big two non-Murdoch voters, and you're still pissed at this board, and you're pissed at this company, and you want it to not be dual class, I went back and I said, all right, you own those shares. How can you get back at the board? You can do what we like to do here, which is to say, what other boards are these directors on? Let's vote them out of the other boards that they're on, right? Like, why should you, if you are just aiding, abetting totalitarian dictators, you shouldn't have a board seat anywhere. You should be toxic on boards.
Yep.
There were 2.
No,
there were 2 on this board. 1 is just left.
Yes.
But there were only 2 options to vote against in other places. One was Anna Pessoa. She's on the COSAN board.
Okay.
She has 4% influence. Turns out COSAN, totalitarian company, entirely run by one guy. All the influence owned by one guy.
Yeah.
And then the other was Kelly Ayotte, the ex-senator, who did not run for re-election this time.
Kelly is a weird one, right? Because we don't often see this. She withdrew her name like days before the meeting. It was her name. The reason why you included it here, which makes sense, is that her name is actually in the proxy statement up for re-election. And in a couple of days, they announced in an 8K that she wasn't running. So I don't even know who would have known that, right?
My guess here is that this election happened just like yesterday. My guess here is that she's been tapped probably to join the incoming
Trump
administration
Ooh,
to
I like
do
it.
something.
Ooh,
right?
I like it.
But she is on the board of Blackstone, She has 3% influence.
Another company.
Totalitarian company, Steven Schwartzman.
The richest guy in the world, yeah.
You can't even vote these directors out of other companies because they only work at totalitarian companies.
I don't know if you had the data for this, but we have seen this anecdotally over and over and over, that directors who they like to sit on multiple controlled company boards because they don't have to do anything, right? They just sit there.
No point.
Yeah.
It is.
But they get paid a lot.
If getting a board seat is the greatest job in America because it basically is a guaranteed 7-year tenure in which 96% of people agree that you're doing an epic job and you get paid the hourly wage of a CEO.
And free bagels at the meetings and airline tickets to show up and all that stuff. Nice hotel. And
occasionally you get and lifetime airline tickets for your spouse.
If you're at Southwest, yes.
This is the greatest subset of that group, which is a board member at a controlled dual-class totalitarian company where you get all the same perks, but literally have no accountability to anyone except as long as you're the friend of that one person. That's it. That's the greatest job.
I think I read in the Blackstone proxy that Kelly Ayoate's job on the board is to hold Steven Schwartzman's mug of tea and kind of keep it warm. Not like
that's right. Yeah.
Not to keep it like hot, but just kind of keep it warm. You know what I mean?
No, I think she holds it and routinely puts it in the microwave for 4 seconds.
Okay, so she's actually doing a bit of effort there. So she's earning
warm.
She's earning her keep, I think. Yeah.
So News Corp investors, the 17% of you that still want a dual class, just give up your shares, you assholes. You should not be allowed to invest.
That's the first asshole. Okay.
Number 2. Every investor that voted for Kimball and Musk.
Oh, you're still on this. You're still on the Tesla investors.
Here's the headline. Elon Musk's father said it would be a, quote, big concern if Elon had to step away from board meetings at his company to, quote, go to government.
Well, let's be fair. He said companies.
Companies, that's right. Yeah. Right, not company. Well, there's only one where you know that board meetings have to happen by rule.
One publicly traded company.
Other ones don't have to happen at all, right?
But
the other board meetings could be Musk sends an email saying, we don't have to have a meeting because I'm just doing what I feel like. Thanks for being around, right? Just as a reminder, those investors voted 78.5% for Kimball Musk, the brother.
Yeah.
And 67.9% for Lachlan Murdoch.
Speaking of News Corp,
more people thought his brother should be on the board than the Murdoch.
The CEO
I don't know what
News
that
Corp.
says about them.
I don't know what it says either.
But I actually looked at the go to government piece. Vivek and Musk and their Department of Government Efficiency. They're targeting $500 billion in cuts initially, and it is the Twitterification of government. The cuts actually target what I could estimate is roughly 38% of government employees, and that's hard to say because there's a lot of overlap and there's not good accounting around this, but it would be around 775,000 employees.
That's a lot of unemployed people all of a sudden,
If they manage to cut 25% of them, which is generous, just 25% of those, that's 200,000 people laid off at once. And the last BLS estimate had unemployment at 4.1%. 7 million people in the U.S. are unemployed. The number would jump to 4.23% just on those cuts alone. They would add 0.13%, a 3% increase in the number of unemployed people in the entire country based on the two of them. So it's like he went into Twitter and cut half the staff, and you figure it out.
And if you take it a step further, too, I mean, think of the amount of government benefits a lot of these unemployed workers will be suddenly eligible for, including healthcare benefits.
COBRA,
Well, even beyond COBRA, some states, will cover you if your income drops below a certain level.
No. So a lot of those assistance programs are on the chopping block to get.
Oh, okay. Okay. But that they inevitably will be eligible for government spending to help them because they're unemployed. Not to mention that, what about some of the small business owners? I see it right here in my own city. When you suddenly pull a bunch of office workers out of a certain area of your downtown, it destroys a lot of small businesses that operate just to serve those workers, like sandwich shops, for example, right? I mean, so there's going to be a lot of collateral damage to just suddenly removing all these workers. I mean,
it's incalculable
because
the things they're talking about cutting are like the secondary, tertiary effects of this are, sure, you cut some government funding to. One of the things is opioid addiction and prevention. Like it's one of the big spends that they want to cut. Okay, so then there's more opioid deaths and like less education and people dealing with opioid issues.
Huge burden on the hospitals is the opioid epidemic.
And if any of those people are veterans, the number one thing on their list is the veterans healthcare system. They want to cut vets healthcare. Remember, there's supposed to be like the party of the military or whatever. They're going to cut. You won't have health care if you're a military veteran. It's unbelievable.
I tell you, the trickle-down effect of this is mind-boggling. I mean, I was just thinking even like you'd have to bail out the local the local transportation because they're going to lose so much money in just people commuting to work. It's going to affect basically everything.
Put it this way. Lachlan Murdoch owns News Corp, which owns the Wall Street Journal.
Well, his 97-year-old dad, he does, but he's about to
owns the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal editorial staff just printed today something that said Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's cuts would devastate the U.S. economy.
Of course.
So the guy who sits on the board, who oversees Elon Musk, who could talk to him and say, "What are you doing?" doesn't do that. Instead, his company puts out an editorial that says, this is one of the worst ideas in the history of the United States.
All right, so who are you mad at? I shouldn't say that. Who is the asshole? Oh, sorry,
every
excuse my language. Who is the A-hole in this one?
Them. Every investor empowered. So
what else?
I told you, these are rehashes.
What else you got?
Number three is a new one.
Ooh, I like new ones.
Airline CEOs.
Ooh.
There were two separate airline CEOs.
I hope it's one of the ones I'm mad at. Go ahead.
Stupidity. Ed Bastian.
That's one I'm mad at. Let's see if it's for the same reason.
The CEO of Delta said, he said at a speech, Trump's approach to regulation could, quote, be a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. And he didn't like Biden's, quote, level of overreach in consumer protections. It was about, here's the things that he didn't like. Pete Buttigieg, the Department of Transportation, forced the airlines to do the following things.
Oh, yes. Great things.
Give cash refunds within a few days of canceled or significantly delayed flights. What a novel idea. Your flight didn't go where it was supposed to go. We couldn't provide you service. We have to pay you back for that. We can't take your money.
Let's not forget that there's been record travel during the Biden administration.
Level of overreach.
Oh, too much overreach.
How about this one? A proposal that airlines seat families with young children together at no extra cost.
Yeah, that one is mind-boggling. When you're on a budget and you're trying to buy a certain tier of tickets, and they say to you, "We can't guarantee we're going to sit you with your fellow passengers." Mind-boggling.
I have had to personally deal with that.
Just cruel.
Where they placed. On a flight, they placed our 7-year-old daughter by herself 10 rows up from us. Yeah. And we had to sit there and be like, you
were freaked out, but she was probably thrilled.
Oh, she was loving it. Yeah. She was very happy. How about this? They want to regulate loyalty programs, but how about this one? I like this one. A rule meant to provide transparency around fees that they charge customers. They literally have to say what they're charging for in the fees, not just... like convenience fee. They can't just say fee. They have to say, what is that fee? All the level of overreach, Ed Bastian. Meanwhile, Ed Bastian, Delta couldn't get anyone in the air because of the CrowdStrike cyber crash.
Yeah.
When the CrowdStrike had their update and it crashed, Delta was the longest. Everyone else figured it out. Delta could not figure it out, and they had to get investigated for it. And they did not want to refund passengers for the crash. They're still fighting about refunding passengers for not being able to send them and schedule them and fly them places. In fact, from our proxy countdown, we said this: the Delta board was a masterclass in best practice board mediocrity. That's Ed Bastian. So
I'll tell you also
one
about
of the
Ed
two
Bastian
CEOs.
is that his pay went up to $34 million this year. I don't. It's a nice little.
That's a nice chunk of
An
change.
increase from $10 million in 2022. But the real reason why you should be mad at Ed Bastian is for this horrible headline that affects me greatly, which is move over peanuts. Shake Shack burgers are coming to Delta flights. This is my personal worst nightmare. I have long advocated that nobody should be eating anything on flights because it just makes a big stinky mess, long lines to the bathroom. It's disgusting. I don't want to see people eat. I don't want to hear them eat. I don't want to smell it. Burgers and fries. Matt, imagine 300 people clogging the bathrooms after eating burgers and fries. That's disgusting. I'm sorry.
Imagine, you know how long it takes them to like load up a plane with supplies and then it's you sit on a plane for like 6 hours and those burgers are basically sitting in a refrigerator.
The whole thing is terrible, Ed Bastian.
For like 5 hours before they actually nuke them and hand them to you. So it's not even good.
What other airline CEO?
The other airline CEO, Robert Isom of American Airlines, said, quote, "We have to invest in this industry." And he touted government support during the pandemic. He's supporting Trump because he wants to more investment in the industry. Isom, American Airlines had among the highest buybacks in the entire industry prior to COVID. You're talking about investing in the industry? American Airlines borrowed $12 billion with which they used to buy back their own stock. They owed $25 billion going into COVID, twice any other U.S. airline. You want to talk about investing in your industry? You didn't. You invested in your own pay. The stock is down 90% from its highs, like its pre-COVID highs today. Still on the board of American, still on the board, who helped create this situation that now Robert Isom want to invest in the industry. Still on the board, helped them get them here. John Cahill, Susan Kronick, Denise O'Leary, Matt Hart, Martin Nesbitt, Jeff Benjamin, Mike Embler. 53% of board influence is still there who approved those buybacks and that debt. Invest in the industry. You fuckers you don't invest in yourselves. Forget investing in the industry. You basically buy yourself stock increases so your salaries go up. There's no other thing.
Yeah, this is a highly complacent board and investor class because they've only had 3 new directors since 2021, and those
3.
And they came in 2022, so they've done nothing since 2022, which is an outlier. S&P 500 boards are typically refreshing their boards annually, at least one, at least one, right?
Yeah,
but they're pretty happy over there at American Airlines.
And side note, Trump pledged to eliminate diversity programs meant to diversify air traffic controllers and pilots. That was like one of his new, we're going to get rid of DEI. It turns out the 3.6% of pilots and flight engineers are black and 8% are women. So he's going to eliminate the 3% of people that are non-white there.
I'll also add that just like his colleague Ed Bastian over at Delta, who saw his pay go up to $34 million from $10 million, Robert Isom saw his pay increase from $5 million in 2022 to $31 million in 2023.
Yeah, baby.
So again,
it helps when you buy back all your stock and your
all the mediocrity that you're referring to doesn't seem to exist in his world.
So yeah, airline CEOs happy about Trump, and they're just total assholes. Those are your 3 options: News Corp investors, Tesla investors, and airline CEOs.
This is easy, slam dunk, because I, as much as I love talking about hate on investors, the News Corp story is new. The Tesla's not so new. I love this information about the airline CEOs.
Yeah, that was it. I knew that was going to be
the winner.
That's the longest write-up.
Especially when you add the pay. I mean, they're bitching and moaning, and their pay has skyrocketed since.
It's been hard,
right? It's been a great year to be a CEO in the airline industry under Biden's watch, right? It's been an amazing year.
Headliniest winners and predictions.
I've got a good one for my headliniest. I just love very casually blaming the worker. I'm going to call this one. Boeing's new CEO, this is Kelly Ortberg. Boeing CEO tells staff to stop, quote, bitching by the water cooler, end quote, and focus on beating Airbus. That's a great headline out of Boeing.
That is a good headline.
Boeing never quits. I mean, Boeing is really, I always talk about Starbucks being my favorite corporate governance company because there's just so many like wonderful tidbits, but Boeing is a close second.
I mean, Boeing is...
Right? They never stop with their joy.
You just like that Starbucks...
I love everything about Starbucks. Everything.
They talk about their favorite drinks in the proxy. That's what you
It's
like.
more than that. It's the boomerang CEO. It's their founder CEO fetish. It's their the glass cliff CEO chair and Melody Hops. There's just so much. Well,
I'm really excited to see what Brian Nichols' favorite drink is, like new CEO.
Can I just say one thing though? I looked at this article. Can I just say that he didn't actually say to stop bitching by the water cooler? Here's what he really said. And I just want to add this because it makes me want to make fun of him a little bit longer. He said, "Don't sit at the water cooler and bitch about people." Ooh. Matt, nobody sits at the water cooler. He doesn't even understand. He doesn't even understand his own cooler, right? I mean, knows nothing about office work. Knows nothing. About? Yeah, come on.
All right,
what do you got?
I have two headlines for the price of one, and they just go back to back, and they require absolutely no context. The first headline, Grimes says Elon Musk has become unrecognizable.
Grimes is one of the women who has mothered his children. Yeah,
correct. And the second headline is Florida man accused of posing as Elon Musk defrauding elderly woman of $250,000.
Oh, I don't like.
I read those back to back, and I thought, Grimes, is it the Florida man that you're talking about, or is it Elon? I just love that. Do you have a winner for the week?
Yeah, my winner, you're going to mock my winner, but I'm just trying to make myself feel good about something, and I'm going to pick Blue Sky CEO Jay Graber. I don't know.
That's it? You're just picking...
I just like... we don't have many women who run social media companies. I like that maybe there's a potential to do some harm to X. I don't know. I like her concept of billionaire proofing companies because it's a concept that I've been wrestling with over the years, and I think she put it better. Because again, as I said before, I think removing dual class shares is a way also of billionaire proofing companies. But I just wanted to pick something that made me feel good. That's my winner.
This made me feel good. I picked every new board member at the National Fisheries Institute.
Oh, whoa!
I don't know if you saw this story. National Fisheries Institute.
Yeah.
NFI. Their bylaws allow for a 51-person board.
51-person board.
51.
Well, they don't want there to be they don't want there to be a tie. I get it.
There's 45 at-large directors.
Yeah.
And an 18-person executive committee drawn from the board, and then 6 officers.
Wow.
NFI elects a new slate of board members every year with 3-year terms. So it's a 3-year term. It's a classified board, 51-person classified board. Just the math, just figuring out.
Do you think it's 51 people?
Election?
Is that to match the brands of like tartar sauce or something? Do you think there's something going on there?
I don't know what it is. It's like one for every species of fish we're allowed to catch.
Yeah.
They added 13 new board members. These are my winners of the week. 13 new board members.
Unlike American Airlines, they're busy adding directors.
And what I liked when I actually read the 990, which nonprofits have to file, which are some of the data that we're here at Free Float scraping as we speak to get all 51 board members' names, they actually their outgoing president got a salary of $684,035 last year.
Is that
what? Here's my question for you.
Yeah.
What percentage of the 51 board members knows there's even a CEO of the National Fisheries Institute?
And it's actually a woman, Lisa Willenda Picard.
That's the incoming president.
No. This says that she was appointed in November 2022. I don't know.
The filing has...
Believe it or not, Matt, I haven't spent a lot of time tracking the leadership at National Fisheries Institute, so I'm not clear about the data here.
I just love a 51-person board. Why doesn't that happen? Just make everybody a board member.
Well, isn't CVS, as we reported earlier this week, I think CVS Health is trending that way. They're going from 12 to 16, so they're getting there.
That's right.
They're getting there.
They're just working their way to 51. Everyone just got to set a bar. Predictions.
My prediction is pretty simple, and it's probably already in the works. Coke, in response to another great member of the Meritocracy, RFK Jr., I guess, whose accomplishments include having
Not
the
a
Kennedy
medical
last
person.
name.
Yeah,
I mean, but he's a member of the Kennedy family, so that's
Right,
that's his accomplishment. No, right?
So meritocracy.
Yeah. Coca-Cola starts adding fluoride to Diet Coke.
Ooh, I like that.
And Nestle's new ad campaign includes Hot Pocket's new slogan, now with a lemony herbed shingles vaccine sauce. So that's how we're going to get vaccines in Florida. And we're just going to have the big food companies are going to just start putting it in our foods.
So my prediction was on the back of your prediction, your story of Kelly Ortberg, stop bitching by the water cooler and focus on beating Airbus. My prediction is Boeing staff bitches at the water cooler about new CEO Kelly Ortberg and looks for jobs at Airbus. Ooh. That was my prediction.
Before we wrap up, Matt, can I just tell you that Lisa Walenda Picard, she's the CEO of the National Fisheries Institute, the job before that, she was the senior vice president at the National Turkey Federation. So,
turkey's like the fish of poultry,
but not a DEI hire there. That she has a background. I mean, she has the appropriate background, right?
Yeah, at the fish of poultry. Yeah,
the fish or turkey or. I'll stop making fun of her. I'm sure she's a nice woman.
That's it. That's Hazelnut Rawless. I am your AnalystHole Matt Moscardi.
That's it. That's a lot.
Float. Come back next week when we do more shows, more inanity. Does it get more inane than everything that's going on all the time?
She was also the national director of public relations at the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey.
That's all we got.
I'm serious.
Until next week. Goodbye.